Hi, this is the Agency for Persons with Disabilities eligibility requirements for participation in APD services. During today's presentation, we're going to cover the intake, application, and eligibility determination process, the waiting list for participation on the iBudget waiver, the various iBudget waiver enrollment options, and the iBudget waiver services. Anyone wishing to apply for services from the Agency for Persons with Disabilities can access our service application online at apdcares.org/customers/application. The application is available in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. The application is divided in sections to be filled out by the applicant or legal representative and the regional staff for the county that you reside in. I'm going to switch real quickly to our website to show you where you can access our service application. You're going to find all these elements at the top. You click on customers, scroll down to where it says applying for services, click on that, and it'll take you to our application page. In here, you will find information about eligibility for services. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, you will find the application. You're going to be able to find it in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. And there's also additional attachments here available for you. If you keep scrolling down, you will find a map of Florida, and you can click on the area that you reside in. So say, for instance, you're in the Northeast region, you can click on that region and you will get all the information that you will need, including address, phone numbers, and you can click on the different fields in there that will show you who our regional staff are. Now we'll go back to our presentation.
The application eligibility determination process involves that an application may be accepted from a parent or court-appointed guardian of a minor child, a legally competent adult, or an authorized legal representative. For applicants that are under 18 years of age, the person's legal representative is the one who would sign the application. For people who are legally competent adults, they can sign it themselves, or they can have an individual who is authorized to make decisions for them, such as with a durable power of attorney. Applications are submitted to the APD office that serves your area. And as you saw before, you can go to the website and find the office that serves your area, which is based on the county that you live in. And it needs to have an original signature. So fax submissions will be returned for an original signature. Okay, applicants that are 18 years of age or older must sign the application unless they have been determined incapacitated by a court of law, or unless the applicant has asked another person to exercise their rights in writing, for instance, with a power of attorney. An adult who is unable to sign may mark the signature line. Upon receipt of a completed, signed, and dated application with the original signature, the agency will review to determine if additional collateral information or evaluations are needed. The agency will notify the applicant or legal representative in writing, detailing the need for additional information and what kinds of information they need to go ahead and continue the eligibility determination process.
Next, we'll talk about the application process. APD will request proof of a developmental disability diagnosis. Documentation of a developmental disability may include, but is not limited to, standardized IQ tests, such as the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Test or the Wechsler Preschool and Primary Scales of Intelligence, tests of adaptive functioning, such as the Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scales or the Adaptive Behavior Assessment System, also known as the ABAS, diagnostic evaluation from licensed professionals, documentation from a medical doctor or healthcare professional, genetic testing, school records, or psychological evaluations. Proof of identity is required as part of the application process. The following are examples of the type of documentation that may be submitted as proof of identity. And these includes, but are not limited to, birth certificates, resident alien card, state driver's license or state issued ID card with photo, a military dependent's ID card, the applicant's original Social Security card. Once the agency has had an opportunity to review all available documentation, the agency will notify the applicant or legal guardian or legal representative in writing of the final determination of eligibility for agency services within 45 days for children under the age of 6, 60 days for individuals 6 years of age or older, or 90 days for individuals whose application was incomplete and required additional information. In order to be eligible for agency services, the applicant must be at least 3 years of age, be a resident of and domiciled in the state of Florida, have a confirmed diagnosis of a developmental disability as defined in rule and statute. Only applicants whose domicile is in Florida are eligible for services. Applications for clients who reside in another state but whose legal guardians have established domicile in Florida may be accepted and processed while the applicant is in the process of transitioning to Florida. A developmental disability, as defined in statute, means a disorder or syndrome that is attributable to intellectual disability with a full-scale IQ of 70 or below, cerebral palsy, severe forms of autism, spina bifida, cystica, or myelomeningocele, Down syndrome, Phelan-McDermid Syndrome, Prader-Willi Syndrome, and the disability must manifest before the age of 18 and must constitute a substantial handicap that can reasonably be expected to continue indefinitely. Substantial handicap means a condition that substantially restricts a person's ability to function physically, mentally, or socially as compared to generally accepted age-appropriate ethnic or cultural norms.
Now we're going to go into a little more detail about these different eligibilities. Establishing eligibility for intellectual disability, the client or the applicant has a significantly sub-average general intellectual functioning. It must manifest before the age of 18 and can be reasonably expected to continue indefinitely. It causes significant deficits in adaptive functioning. The IQ tests, as were mentioned before, show a score below 70, and the adaptive tests come from a licensed professional, like a licensed psychologist.
Establishing eligibility for cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy means a group of disabling symptoms of extended duration, which results from damage to the developing brain that may occur before, during, or after birth, and that results in the loss of impairment of control over voluntary muscles. For the purpose of this definition, cerebral palsy does not include those symptoms or impairments resulting solely from a stroke. Diagnosis is confirmed by written documentation from either a medical doctor, a doctor of osteopathy, or other medical records documenting a diagnosis of cerebral palsy before the age of 18.
Establishing eligibility for autism. Autism, for purposes of APD eligibility, is a pervasive neurologically based developmental disability of extended duration. It causes severe learning, communication, and behavior disorders. Individuals with autism exhibit impairment in reciprocal social interaction, impairment in verbal and nonverbal communication, and impairments in imaginative ability. They have a restricted repertoire of activities and interests. They have stereotyped and repetitive use of language or idiosyncratic language. They have failure to develop peer relationships appropriate to developmental level, a lack of spontaneous seeking to share enjoyment or interests, and inflexible adherence to specific routines or rituals, and repetitive motor mannerisms such as finger flapping or complex whole body movements. The age of onset is during infancy or childhood, and diagnosis is made by licensed psychiatrists, psychologists, neurologists, or developmental pediatricians. And of course, the things I've mentioned that is not an exhaustive list.
Establishing eligibility for spina bifida. Spina bifida, individuals with spina bifida have a medical diagnosis of spina bifida cystica or myelomeningocele. Diagnosis is confirmed by written documentation from either a medical doctor, doctor of osteopathy, or medical records that document a diagnosis of spina bifida cystica or myelomeningocele before the age of 18. Individuals with spina bifida occulta are not eligible to receive APD services.
Establishing eligibility for Down syndrome. Down syndrome is caused by the presence of an extra chromosome 21. It does require medical documents documenting a chromosome analysis, an absence of a chromosome analysis. The diagnosis can be accepted from a healthcare provider certifying the physical signs of the syndrome. Prenatal diagnostic tests may also be accepted.
Establishing eligibility for Phelan-McDermid Syndrome. Phelan-McDermid Syndrome is a rare disability. Children are born with a specific chromosomal abnormality. Although the range and severity of symptoms may vary, Phelan-McDermid Syndrome is generally characterized by a low muscle tone, absent to severely delayed speech, moderate to profound intellectual disability, minor, malformed, or misshapen features, symptoms of autism spectrum disorder, motor delays, and epilepsy. Establishing eligibility for Phelan-McDermid Syndrome include documentation from a physician which provides the diagnosis of the syndrome as derived from genetic testing.
Prader-Willi syndrome means an inherited condition typified by neonatal hypotonia with failure to thrive, hyperphagia, or an excessive drive to eat, which sometimes leads to obesity, and a mild to moderate intellectual disability, hypogonadism, short stature, mild facial dysmorphism, and a characteristic neurobehavior. A diagnosis must be confirmed by written documentation from either a medical doctor, a doctor of osteopathy, or medical records that document a diagnosis of Prader-Willi syndrome before the age of 18.
Children between the ages of 3 and 5 who are at high risk of developing a developmental disability may also receive services from the agency. Establishing eligibility for high-risk children requires evidence of a determination by an APD regional office that a medical diagnosis of developmental delay of the child indicates a high probability that the child is likely to have an eventual diagnosis of a qualifying condition. If early intervention services are not provided, or the child has one or more physical or genetic anomalies associated with a developmental disability. These may include genetic or chromosomal disorders, metabolic disorders, congenital malformations, neurological abnormalities, congenital and acquired infectious diseases, chronic or catastrophic illnesses, or a parent or guardian with a developmental disability who requires assistance in meeting the child's developmental needs.
Now we're going to discuss the waiting list priority categories. Once an individual is determined eligible for APD services and presumed eligible for the iBudget waiver, the agency is required by law to assign a waiting list priority category in the following order. Category 1 are clients who meet crisis criteria. Either the individual is homeless, which means the client, excuse me, the applicant is currently homeless, living in a homeless shelter, or living with relatives in an unsafe environment. The category needs to be supported by credible evidence, and it needs to reflect that without immediate provision of waiver services, that the health and safety of the applicant are at risk. These also include clients who are, or applicants, who are a danger to self or others. And this requires, of course, documentation that could be reviewed by an area behavior analyst. The caregiver could be in extreme duress and no longer able to provide care for the individual and the individual's health and safety needs, and could include complaints of neglect, exploitation, or abuse, or that the applicant's current living environment is not safe for their health and safety.
Waiting list priority category 2 includes children from the child welfare or foster care system with an open case with the Department of Children and Families statewide automated child welfare system, and who are either transitioning out of the child welfare system at the time of adoption, reunification with family members, or a permanent placement with a relative, or children who are at least between the ages of 18 and 22 who will need both waiver and extended foster care services, or individuals between the ages of 18 and not yet 22 who withdrew their consent to remain in extended foster care.
Category 3 are individuals whose caregiver has a documented condition that is expected to render the caregiver unable to provide care within the next 12 months and for whom a caregiver is required, but there's no alternate caregivers available. Also, individuals who are at substantial risk of incarceration, individuals whose behaviors or physical needs place them or their caregiver at risk of serious harm, individuals who are identified as ready for discharge within the next year from a state mental hospital or a skilled nursing facility would all fall under category 3.
Waiting list priority category 4 includes individuals whose caregivers are 70 years of age or older and for whom a caregiver is required. Waiting list priority category 5 includes individuals who are expected to graduate within the next 12 months from secondary or high school and need support to obtain a meaningful day activity, maintain competitive employment, or to pursue an accredited program of post-secondary education.
Category 6 are individuals 21 years of age or older who do not meet the criteria for categories 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And category 7 are individuals under the age of 21 who do not meet the criteria for categories 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Next, we're going to discuss the different types of situations where an individual can enroll on the waiver. And this is the criteria where we're able to enroll individuals on the home and community-based services iBudget waiver. First are individuals who meet the criteria for crisis waiver enrollment, or as we discussed earlier, individuals who meet the priority category 1 of the waiting list. Next are children from the foster care system who meet the priority category 2. In addition to that, between the years of 2015 and 2017, the Florida legislature appropriated additional funds to offer approximately 6,000 waiver slots for individuals with intense needs on the waiting list. However, no additional funds have been appropriated by the legislature since then to make additional offers. The 2014 Florida legislature authorized individuals who meet the APD eligibility requirements to receive home and community-based services in this state if the individual's parent or legal guardian is an active duty military service member, and at the time of the service member's transfer to Florida, the individual was receiving home and community-based services in another state. Also, the Agency for Persons with Disabilities is committed to transitioning individuals who have chosen to move into the community from an intermediate care facility for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and receive the most appropriate iBudget waiver services that meet their needs. In addition to that, in 2016, the Florida legislature authorized individuals with Phelan-McDermid Syndrome who meet APD's eligibility requirements to be enrolled on the waiver by passing the waiting list.
We wanted to also kind of talk about briefly some of the iBudget waiver services. The iBudget waiver provides home and community-based supports and services to eligible persons with developmental disabilities living at home or in a home-like setting. The iBudget waiver program is funded both by federal and matching state dollars. Individuals enrolled in the iBudget waiver program should receive services that enable them to have a safe place to live, have a meaningful day activity, receive medically necessary supplies and equipment, and receive transportation required to access their waiver services. For additional information about the Florida iBudget waiver and waiver services and things we've talked about today, please visit our website at apdcares.org.
And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to send us an email at liesl.ramos@apdcares.org. That's LIESL.RAMOS@apdcares.org, or Amanda
Soul at apdcares.org, which is Amanda, AMANDA dot SOULE at apdcares.org.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your attention, and let us know if you have any additional questions.